Today we'll be presenting on language impairments. My name is Manushka Desir.
I'm Danielle.
And my name is Jennifer.
Alright, so before you can really understand what a language impairment is, you first need to know the difference between the three Ds, which actually refers to these three words as the three Ds. We have a language delay, a language disorder, and a language difference. Now, a language delay is basically when a child doesn't acquire language skills, as opposed to other children who are within their chronological age, or they're just not acquiring it as fast enough as they should. A language disorder is basically an issue with processing linguistic information, such as spoken or written language. And then you have a language difference, which is basically where there is a difference in the way that the person communicates, and you would see this sometimes as an example that we can use is with people who are bilingual because English may not be their first language, and you'll notice that they have a language difference there. Now, what is a language impairment? Now, I just told you guys about the three Ds. A language impairment would fall in the category of a language disorder. And a language impairment is basically a disorder in which one or more of the basic learning processes involved in understanding or using spoken or written language is present. Now, a language impairment basically affects the domains of language. And from our other classes that we had, we all are familiar with the domains of language. We know that phonology is basically concerning the speech sounds. Morphology is basically how words are formed or how words come together. And basically syntax is basically, the sentence structure, how sentences are created and structured. And also semantics is basically the vocabulary of words or their definition. And then we have pragmatics, which is the social use of communication or language. And this is basically a link here that we have where in this video, you guys can look up this video on your spare time, but it's basically a video that shows how teachers, how they basically see students who have language impairments and basic signs to look for in a child that may have a language impairment.
So, who is affected? Children as young as 3 to 4 years old can be diagnosed with a language impairment. If they're not diagnosed that young, once they get into school, a teacher, as Mimi was saying, a teacher may notice it and then they may get diagnosed a little bit later. The National Institute of Health estimates that 7 to 8% of 5-year-olds will have a language impairment. This goes for the children already diagnosed or those that have yet to be diagnosed. So children with language impairments have very typical hearing skills, normal intelligence, they have no obvious neurological, motor, or sensory disturbances, so they're very typical physically. The only thing is they just have a language impairment. They will have issues with listening, comprehension, and expressing language, and then that leads to issues in their academics, their behavior, and social skills. So what is the etiology? An exact cause for language impairments is still yet to be found. They're not sure why, it's just a thing that happens. There are certain theories out there that suggest that it's an inherited trait, but that's not like 100%, they haven't proven it yet, that's just a theory that's out there. It's said that 50 to 70% of children with a language impairment will have someone in their family somewhere from down the line that probably had a language impairment. So symptoms are things to kind of look for. Earlier in life are children that are late to talk, that they're probably not saying any words up until the age of 2. And then as they get older, new words are hard to learn, and then their conversation skills are not up to par with those around them.
Okay, now the first person who may notice the language impairment would be the teacher, because the teachers are the ones who are working with literary tasks such as reading and writing, so they may notice that the child may not be reading where they need to be, and also they may notice that the child may display behavioral problems. And even though the teachers are the ones who notice this, they are not the ones who are going to be diagnosing the language impairment. The language impairment will basically be diagnosed by a speech-language pathologist. So the teacher would basically let the parents know that they notice that there's an issue going on with the child's academics, and they're not reading or not understanding, and not being able to comprehend what they're reading, and so they'll speak to the parents about it and let the parents know that they may need to see a speech-language pathologist. And what the SLP would then do is they'll evaluate the child, and by evaluating the child, they'll basically use assessments to determine whether there is a language impairment that is present. Also, they will designate the type of impairment that the child may have, meaning they'll determine whether the impairment may be primary or secondary. And then they'll also determine the domains that are affected, whether it's the phonology, the morphology, the syntax or the semantics or pragmatics that may be affected. They'll also formulate a treatment plan, which is where we get into the intervention side of things. Now, also in their evaluation and also their assessments, they're basically going to use a comprehensive language evaluation, which will help them determine whether the impairment is even present. And also, it'll help them determine the child's language strength and also their language weaknesses. And it's also the speech pathologist's responsibility to collect a case history for the child, where they will basically gather information about the medical history. Also, they'll gather information about the child's socioeconomic background, their cultural and linguistic backgrounds as well. Also, in the case history or during the case history, the speech pathologist will basically go ahead and interview the child's parents, the child's teachers, and also health professionals that are also involved as well. They will also gather information about the child's auditory, visual, motor, and cognitive status as well.
So as with all language disorders, and early intervention is the key to success. So intervention goals. Our intervention should start out as early as possible before the child starts school. Family and community involvement is very important. It does take a village to raise a child. So if everybody works together alongside the SLP, then we can get the child to meet their speech goals. If you see that a child is not making any progress or that they plateaued, know that some of the tools that they're learning in speech therapy that are not being carried out in everyday life. Our goal in intervention is not to be 100%, but our goal is to be as close to as 100% as possible. We also work with the building blocks of language. So phonology. So remember, the phonology is a relationship among speech sounds. We have to increase the consonant repertoire. We also have to work on the accuracy of the sound production, and we work on rhyming words and blending. As we know that if a child cannot rhyme, then there shows that there could be an underlying speech disorder. Also blending. We work on separate syllables or separate sounds and blend them together. So we can start with ma and then end with me. So the child should be able to put it together to make the word mommy, or pan and work on the word cake so that we can blend it together to make the word pancake. Then we have to work on semantics. morphology and syntax. So with morphology, we have to help the child make words. So we can, as you see, we can start with the word friend, and then we can add the S at the end to make the word friends. Or we can add the word ship to make friendship, or we can add a beginning and an end where we can make it unfriendly. Syntax, we work on sentence structure with the child. So with pragmatics, we have to improve the conversation skill. So initiating conversation, maintaining the conversation, fixing the communication breakdown if there's any. Also, we work with the child on turn taking when having the conversation. We also work on narrative skills and imagination play. Imagination play helps us in real time get the child to their speech goals. Literacy is for life. So as SLPs, some people don't want to, but we have to work with literacy. So with literacy, we work on building reading skills with the child. Print awareness, we have to understand that the letters on the page make sounds. With the sounds put together, make words, and these words hold meaning. We also work on book awareness and understanding simple stories. The child must be able to storytell, fix the grammar, as well as keep the other person engaged. So if they're reading a story, they should be able to tell the other person what's going on in the story. So now we're going to talk about treatment. So one treatment is narrative intervention. So with narrative intervention, we focus on the child's ability to tell a story. We provide the child must be able to provide content for the listener, also work with the story grammars, and it's a natural way of targeting specific language difficulties. So in this link, you'll see that there's a clinician, her name is Danielle, and she's working with her client who has a language disorder. The book that she's reading has no words in it, so it's up to Danielle to make a story out these pictures and help the clinician knows what's going on in the story.
Narration skills that can help pragmatics and semantics. So today's therapy session, I'm going to have Danielle read this book, and it just contains a whole bunch of pictures, as you can see, and she's just going to narrate the story, and when she does, I'm going to correlate the words in which she says to the pictures. Hi Danielle. Hi. How are you? Good. Good. So today,
So we're going to fast forward a little bit.
book, okay. Happy? Is she sad? Is she tired? Okay, so Minnie Mouse is tired. Okay, so now we're gonna tape on Minnie is sleeping, okay? Do you want to keep that on for me? Good job, Danielle. Here, guys. Okay, so Mickey Mouse has eggs. Why does he have eggs for? He's cooking. Okay, so he's cooking.
So you can see in the video that the clinician Danielle does have to prompt the client a few times. Mickey has eggs. Okay, what about the eggs? What would he be doing with the eggs? With a typically developing child, they would have been able to tell you that Mickey has the eggs because he's going to bake a cake. So fast forward a little bit.
Job. Okay, so now we have Minnie covered her eyes. Great job. Good imagination. Excellent.
so now we'll talk about incidental teaching. So incidental teaching is a natural way of teaching a child something. So it is based off of the child's interest. You follow the child's lead and you attempt to reinforce the communication that is happening during that time. This here is a video that shows incidental teaching.
Nice job closing it. What color do you want? We have red, green, orange, or purple. Orange? Here you go. Good job. Whoa, you dropped it. That's okay. Here you go, Amanda. What do you want me to do? Do you want me to close it? Close it, okay. What color? Red, green, blue, purple, or orange? Blue. Blue, good job. Are you going to open it? Nice. What? What are you doing? Closing, good job, thank you. What color do you want next? Red, green, blue, purple, or orange? Purple. Nice job. Teacher.
Sorry. So, certain hallmarks or things that are seen frequently in children that have language impairments are the omission of function words, so the, are, and is. They'll do pronoun substitutions and subject positions. They'll have difficulty using verbs. They frequently drop the S from present tense verbs, and they'll drop the past tense ED. With that though, it should be noted that when a word's past tense form is an irregular form, they will add ED onto the present tense word to try to compensate and try to make it past tense. So for example, if the word is draw, so instead of saying she drew a picture, they'll say she drawed a picture. So the fact that it has to be present tense, they understand that, they just aren't sure of the proper usage of the ED. And then they also have inconsistencies in using particular morphemes. And then also what they do a lot is they alternate between subject pronouns, so like they'll use the inappropriate form with the not inappropriate form, so they'll alternate between I and me. So instead of saying, you know, I lost it, they'll say me lost it, and then him and he as well. So some examples are they all grown up, so the correct form should be they are all grown up, and then it just sad. The correct term would be it is just sad. Like I said, him lost it, it should be he lost it, and then she ride the horse, it should be she rides the horse. So this video is geared mainly towards children with learning disabilities, and it kind of highlights their frustrations and, you know, their struggles, but we all feel that children with language impairments kind of also go through the same struggle and frustrations because they know what they want to say and they know, you know, how they're feeling. It's just they have difficulty getting it out. So I feel like this is nice to kind of hear it from their perspective and, you know, maybe things that as clinicians or teachers or in general can do to aid them in their communication.
Dear teacher, I know it doesn't always seem like it, but I really do want to listen and learn.
It's just my brain is kind of different. So this is what I'd like you to know about me. I have to move, or I really can't pay attention.
Even though I'm not looking at you, I can still listen to what you're saying.
If you tell me Sit up straight. Now I have to use all of my brain to do just that.
It makes me feel sad when you tell me to try harder, even though I've already tried as hard as I can.
I actually listen better when I'm rocking in my chair. When you give me a bunch of directions, I start to think I will never remember all of this.
Sometimes my mom or dad ends up doing all of my homework. So here's how you can maybe help.
Let me get up and move while I'm learning.
Let me look wherever I want when you talk to me.
Let me rock or slouch in my chair.
No matter what, please don't take away my recess. Give me a hug I can do all by myself. My directions very short.
Just ask me, what does your brain need right now?
And one more thing. My brain might be different than yours, but it's still amazing.
Sincerely, your student.
Your student.
Your student. Your student.
Okay, so that concludes our presentation on SLI. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave us a message and we'll answer them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.